the criticisms or one of the questions I've gotten from audiences, less so since January 6th, but I still get this question: Do you really think another civil war can happen here? When I gave a very early talk about, the findings of the task force at UCSD, my talk completely bombed. Not only did people not believe it, but they actually they thought it was irresponsible. It was a kind of exercise in fear mongering. And I remember going back home and trying to figure out why I hadn't been able to communicate this. I stuck to the data. I just revealed what we knew, and I realized then that I had missed something really important. And I think why most Americans can't conceive of the possibility of another civil war here is because they're thinking about the first civil war. They're thinking if we have a second civil war, it's going to look like an 1860s version of civil war. And the reality is that's just simply not true. First of all, that 1860s version of civil war is highly, highly unusual. It's really rare for rebels to have an army the size of the Confederate Army. It's really, really rare to have two conventional armies meeting each other on a battlefield. What you normally see, and what you in fact increasingly see in the 21st century, is perhaps better described as an insurgency. An insurgency is a war by groups of society against their government, but it's oftentimes very decentralized. It's fought by multiple different militias and paramilitary groups, and sometimes these groups work with each other, and sometimes actually they don't. Syria is a classic insurgency. There were hundreds of factions fighting the Syrian government, and in fact there were multiple factions fighting on the government side. The other thing that's typical in the 21st century civil war that you didn't see in the first civil war is that rebels almost always use unconventional tactics. And unconventional tactics meaning they are engaging in guerrilla warfare, hit and run attacks, assassinations of opposition leaders, judges, powerful individuals, terrorist attacks targeted at specific groups, oftentimes minority groups. The thing you almost never see are insurgents actively trying to engage the military. They are doing everything they possibly can to avoid the government's military. And that makes perfect sense because they're often much weaker than the government. And if they were to engage the government, they'd be slaughtered. So they take violence directly to the population, directly to individual leaders who they want to eliminate. And these tend to be fairly low levels of killing, but persistent and consistent. So think about what they call the troubles in Northern Ireland. I hate that term. I don't know why they get a special term, therefore, but they do. Maybe it's quaint, and the British don't have to actually face the fact that they did experience a civil war. That is a classic insurgency. If you know the history of the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, first intifada, the second intifada, that's an insurgency. If violence breaks out again in Israel, which I think it actually will, you'll see a third intifada, that's going to be a continuation of that same insurgency. So if another civil war happens here in the United States, that's what it's starting to look like. And you already see small elements of this. 15th of May, 1995 attack on the federal building in Oklahoma City. That would be something that you would see. A mass killing in a synagogue, targeting Jews in cities and places where white supremacist groups are operating in an attempt to intimidate Jews into submission, an attempt to convince them to leave that state. Targeting Latinos in El Paso, African Americans in Buffalo. These are the types of tactics that you are likely to see, but just at a bigger scale.